Hi, John. How are you today?
Hi, Elliot. How's it going out there in the warm Midwest?
Well, it's a little warmer than it's been, and we're supposed to have some continued warm up, except for Friday when it's supposed to be in the single digits. But while you're here, you'll just have to run indoors.
Yeah. One of the things I'm excited about doing when I'm in Milwaukee this week, besides going to a Marquette basketball game, we're doing something for the commercial banking program on Monday with local FBI and a former AML Voices participant, Dennis Lormel, to talk about financial crime issues with banking students. So we're excited about doing that. We're doing that on Monday in Milwaukee. So I'm happy to be able to spend some time with the students there and hopefully get some folks thinking about this, what we do as a career path.
Yeah, that'll be great. I know you and I have both talked with students in that program in the past about encouraging them to think about the compliance side of banking and the operation side of banking in addition to the customer facing. So I'm hoping to be able to slide over and watch you guys chat.
That's great. So earlier this week, Transparency International released the 2022 Corruption Perception Index. We've talked about that before with these conversations, but also we've had the pleasure of having folks from that world speak in our webinars. And I thought a couple of things struck me, and I know you have thoughts there as well. People should remember that the way the index is crafted, they look at 13 different data points. They review 180 countries. And for 2022, basically, there's been no major change. In fact, for the most part, 124 countries have remained stagnant in their corruption protection levels, or how the index measures success, and 25 countries improved, but 31 declined. So I thought that based on all of that, not great news for all of us that care about dealing with corruption issues that we know are one of our priorities from the U.S. government, but also a global challenge, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. Just again, additional reminder. So the index scores from 1 to 100, 1 being a very clean country and 100 being a country that's has a very high corruption index.
Well, it's actually the reverse.
You're right. I beg your pardon. Thank you. You are correct. That was
otherwise. With
right.
The US,
a higher score is good. Sorry,
yeah.
This is not golf. This is baseball. So
That's right.
A higher score is good, and a low score is bad. The top 6 countries in the index this year were Denmark, Finland, New Zealand, Norway, Singapore, and Sweden. We ended up with 6 rather than 5 because there were some tie scores. And the worst scores, the most potentially corrupt areas, Yemen, Venezuela, South Sudan, Syria, and Somalia. Somalia with a 180 score. Or the 180th slot, and they had a score of 12.
Yeah, so don't be packing your bags for those countries anytime soon.
No, I think that would be it'd be a good idea not to do that. 2/3 of the countries score below 50, and the average score of all 180 is 43. So I think what you said earlier is, somewhat disturbing that there's been the vast majority of the countries who are in the index made no forward progress, made no progress at all. And we had more slippage than growth. They also looked at this, looking at 6 regions. Western Europe and the European Union had the highest average regional score of 66, and Sub-Saharan Africa had the lowest with 32. So again, not totally surprising on Western Europe, considering the number of the countries in the top 6 that are in Western Europe. And the United States had a score. Sorry, I need to change.
69, so they came in 24th.
Yep.
Canada was 74, came in 14th. One of the things that I also looked at was a former panelist that we've had the pleasure of talking to, Gary Coleman, was asked about this for an interview with Voice of America. And he made the case that, even though we improved, the U.S. improved 2 points from last year. He said that the U.S., based on the sheer size of our economy and our financial secrecy rules, or the lack thereof from his perspective, is, quote, a major facilitator of corruption internationally, unquote. And so Transparency International has, as they have said, have called out for changes in terms of dealing with shell companies. That's why they supported the Corporate Transparency Act, which, as we both know, is still being implemented. They also were very strong supporters of what was called the Enablers Act, that we also talked about. It had the potential of making it through in the last Congress, but did not. It was not included in the National Defense Authorization Act. And Gary's comment about that is that lawyers, accountants, money managers, corporate formation agents, those that create trust for wealthy people, they're currently not covered by AML responsibilities. And he's not wrong. And he really believes strongly that they need to close that gap. And so a bill has been reintroduced, but there's a lot of skepticism that it would make it through this divided Congress. So even though the U.S. has done better, our sheer size gives organizations like Transparency International concern that we're just so big. And then they also, in that same story, quote Janet Yellen, who said last year that the U.S., and as you know, she's the Treasury Secretary, was, quote, the best place to hide and launder ill-gotten gains, unquote. And that's because of the shell company issue. While a lot of this is starting to be addressed, I think that's relevant too, as we try to figure out what all this means in terms of our community's response to due diligence, reporting, detection, training, and all those sorts of things.
Yes. So there's a couple of areas that that the report focuses on. One is the link between corruption and security threats, and how having a very corrupt government can really represent security threats both to the people of that country, but also to other countries in the region. And the other one that I thought was interesting, not surprising, but interesting, was corruption and resilience to organized crime. So that the adverse impact of strong organized crime organizations in a country or in a region, which is often directly related to the level of corruption, is a serious problem that they point out. Additionally, they do make 4 recommendations, things that they believe will enhance transparency and therefore reduce corruption. One is to reinforce checks and balances and to promote separation of powers. We see certainly in authoritarian regimes where a strong and separate judiciary and legislative function are eaten away at, and therefore there's no check and balance on power, which also can directly connect to corruption. They talk about the importance of sharing information and upholding the right to access it. Again, that's the transparency component. Limit private influence by regulating lobbying and promoting open access to decision making. Again, another element of transparency, and another reason that a lot of people are concerned about the level of corruption in the United States, because our lobbying infrastructure has essentially routinized what in some countries would be viewed as corrupt activity, and that is the peddling of influence. And then fourth, to combat transnational forms of corruption, they find that foreign bribery, corporate secrecy, and complicit professional enablers are forms of transnational corruption that need to be dealt with. And those specifically align with what you just talked about from both Gary's quotes and those of Secretary Yellen.
The index is amazing. They do so much. There's so much detail here. As we mentioned, it goes by region. It goes by different categorizations. You can go country by country to figure out where there's been gaps, where there's been some improvement. The information, I think, can really help not just those of us that have international and global organizations, but even if you don't, your client base in most cases is going to have global connections. So that becomes pretty important. So corruption is, again, it's a priority in the US. Obviously, it sort of drives everything. As they say, it's a fuel for conflict and social unrest. It takes needed resources away from people that need those resources. And so this is a welcome index in that the information is welcome, but it tells us we have a lot more to do. So when you get a chance, take a look at not just the overall summary, but some of the detailed parts of the index, and I think you'll find some value there, and definitely a training tool for your internal staff.
Agreed. So, John, what else do you have that you're working on?
So, a couple things. Did an interview earlier this week or late last week with Jim Lee, who is the IRS chief of the criminal division, and Jim talked about the challenge he had for his staff regarding the value proposition of BSA data. So that'll be posted fairly soon. Also going to interview next week a former enforcement lawyer from the OCC. And then I interviewed Tom Vartanian, who has just written a book about issues with the internet. He had written a book 2 years ago that I interviewed him about, and that was about all the financial crises in the US and what we've learned from them. So I got those couple of things set up, and we're working to effort several other, hopefully very interesting folks to talk about various things in law enforcement issues, regulatory issues, you name it. And I'll say to the folks listening here, if there's somebody or some issue you want us to cover, send us a note. We'd be happy to do it.
Yes, our webinar this month is on the 28th of the month at 1 p.m., a live stream 1 p.m. Eastern Time and 6 p.m. GMT. And it's on compliance for mid-sized banks, tips and trends. So we'll have panelists from some mid-sized banks and really be able to dig into how they're embracing the challenges related to financial crime compliance in their environments. And lastly, just want to remind you that if you enjoy our content, there's a lot more of it on our website. And if you have a financial crime compliance challenge that we can be of help with, certainly reach out to us and we'll connect you with the right people in our organization who can help you find effective and efficient solutions. John, have a good week, travel safely, and I'll see you while you're here.
Sounds good, Elliot. Take care of yourself. Stay safe.
Yep. Bye-bye.